there, welcome to my channel, and if you're new here, please do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I know that it has been a very long while since I did a video, but I'm very happy that I'm back, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the 5 JavaScript projects that are going to help you land your next internship or your next job, so please stick around. Before we start looking at the projects, I just want to mention a few things that I feel are very important, and these things are going to actually help you be successful when it comes to working on these projects and be successful when it comes to learning and mastering JavaScript. So the number one thing that you need to do is that do not really focus on the styling as much when it comes to these projects. The one goal that you have to make sure that you focus on is that you want to make sure that you understand how to use JavaScript and that you understand how the concepts behind JavaScript work. So don't really focus on the styling as much. This is something that will come much later, but right now you want to make sure that you just understand the functionality and how to work with JavaScript. Another thing that you actually also want to make sure that you do not do is that do not really copy code from someone else. Make sure that you actually write down the code by yourself and that you get to come up with the solutions on your own. And then you also want to make sure that you give yourself a deadline. So when it comes to this project, I would suggest a deadline of at least 1 week. So it might seem like a short time, but this is something that is actually very achievable, and you doing so will actually really prove to be beneficial to you. And finally, I would say that when working on these projects, just make sure that you continue reading and also make sure that you continue looking at tutorials if this is something that really works for you. Okay, so now onto the projects. So the first thing that I would recommend that you work on is the to-do list app, and I know that this is a very common app and a very common thing when it comes to learning JavaScript, and sometimes people actually tend to overlook it, but it is very important, and I would suggest that you take the time to build this. So this is very simple. You basically just get to build a list of things that you would like to do, and the main reason why I think that this is a very important project is that you'll actually find yourself understanding a lot of things when it comes to handling click events, and basically when it comes to understanding the whole concept behind it. So it might seem very simple, but it will really help you to understand a lot of fundamentals when it comes to JavaScript. So in this case, for example, let's say I want to add a couple of to-do things that I really want to accomplish. So let's say I just want to build an app. Let's say I want to go to school, just things like that. Building this will actually help you to understand a lot of things. Like, let's say when I complete it, I want to mark it as completed. If I want to delete it, just the functionality behind all this is what is very important, and this is what is going to help you understand the concept behind click events in JavaScript and things like that. So make sure that you take your time to work on this, because this will really help you understand a lot of basics. So the second project that I would recommend as well is a weather application, and in this case you'll also get to understand a lot of things when it comes to on-click events. You'll also get to learn a lot of things when it comes to adding and deleting. So this is somewhat similar to the to-do app. The only difference is that in this case you'll also learn how to pull data from an API, and you'll also get to learn a lot of things when it comes to adding things like images if you want to. So feel free to play around with this application. So in this case, let's say I want to add the weather in a place like Kigali. So Kigali is in Rwanda. So when I add the city, I'm going to get the weather in Kigali currently is 63 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is so cool, and you'll also get to learn a lot of things because you'll be able to pull in data from an API. You'll know how to add information and basically delete it. So you'll basically get to play with a lot of click event. So you're also going to learn a lot of fundamentals when it comes to JavaScript. So this is a project that I will really recommend you to try out. So the third project that I'm going to recommend is building a login form, and in this case this is very important because authentication is something that is a very big deal in today's world, and this skill is something that is really going to help you a lot in the long run, and you're going to find yourself doing this and using this knowledge a lot more in your career. So make sure that you take this seriously and make sure that you actually take this particular project very seriously. So when it comes to building a login form, you're going to understand how form validation works. You're going to understand the entire authentication process. You're also going to find yourself dealing with a lot of on-click events. So by this point, you should say that on-click events are very common when it comes to web apps, when it comes to JavaScript. So this project in itself is really going to help you understand something that is very fundamental when it comes to the world of web, and basically when it comes to building on the web. So the fourth project that I'm going to recommend is an expense tracker, and this is something that is very similar to the first two projects that I talked about. In this case, the to-do list and the weather application. I mean that their functionality is somewhat the same. So you basically get to add an expense or get to remove an expense or something like that, or basically you get to add a source of income and you get to add the expenses and you get to calculate the remaining amount that you have. So when it comes to building this project, you're going to basically learn how to work with on-click events again. You're basically going to know how to add something, you're going to know how to delete something, you're also going to know how to basically calculate something. So in this case, you're going to basically calculate the available budget and get to know how much of our income we are spending on something. So this is something that is really going to serve you as well. So it will be so cool that you get to build something that you can personally use as well. Feel free to play around with things like adding images. Feel free to play around with things like adding drop downs if you want. So just make sure to add a lot more functionality to this app if you want. So yeah. And so the final thing that I will recommend you to work on is a personal website, and in this case basically a portfolio website whereby you're going to add all the projects that you have worked on so far. And the reason I'm recommending this is that you'll actually get to see how JavaScript works on web pages or on websites, for example. So you'll get to add all the projects that you have been working on. So in this case, I took the time to basically add a couple of projects that I had been working on. This was basically, I think, 3 years ago, and so it has been a while since I updated this website. And this is basically an example of things that I had worked on at the time, and I basically built a portfolio website for that. And another thing that I would want to say is that building a portfolio website is very important, especially when it comes to applying for jobs or applying for internship. This is something that is really going to give you an upper edge, or basically an upper hand, because you're going to be able to showcase your skill. And not only that, you're going to learn a lot in the process. So when you build this website and you get to build it from scratch, you're going to find yourself understanding a lot of things, understanding how to work with forms, for example, understanding how to work with click events, understanding how to do things like animations, for example, if you wanted to. So you're going to find yourself learning a lot of things. So make sure that you take the time to build yourself a portfolio website. I would really recommend that. So yeah. And that's it. Thank you so much. I really hope that this project ideas really serve in helping you learn and become better at JavaScript, and also help you land your first internship or your first job. Thank you again, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers!